Hi, and welcome to Come Alive with us. I'm Jordan Israel, and this week we have Alex Tremble, and I'm really excited to have Alex on. He's got a fantastic leadership background, and he was actually recommended by Dominic Hawkins, who I did my first podcast with. So very excited to have you on, Alex.
You know what? I'm super excited to be here. And I love how you pronounce my name. You said Alex Tremble. Almost sound like really fancy, like Tarjay, right?
Is that so how do you pronounce it?
Look again. I'm gonna start pronouncing it Alex Tremble, but it's just Alex Tremble.
Okay. All right. Hey, I didn't know. I was like, we could go either way, but I like it.
I love it.
Awesome. Well, Alex, if you could give just a little bit of your background, that would be fantastic.
Oh, of course, of course. So I'm a Libra. I like long walks on the beach.
I think
I'm
you
the
sure we get along well.
Exactly. You and I are going to have a lot of fun.
Yes.
So Alex Tremble, founder and CEO of GPS Leadership Solutions. Our organization is focused on helping organizations attract, retain, and develop senior level and very effective leaders. But my background actually started when I was just a wee lad. I was blessed to have become, all state, all CIF, all area, all these things in football, and went to college on football scholarship and did great things there. And people would say, like, look at my life and be like, Alex, that is so wonderful. You just living life to the fullest. But what they didn't realize was that what was driving me was hope. It was hope that my biological father, who left when I was a couple of days old, if I just did well enough, I did good enough, if I was quote unquote successful enough, he would one day want to have a relationship with me. And quick note, he never did. But more importantly, my mom figured it out when I was in college and was like, Alex, you want to be successful. That's great. You should be successful, but do it for you. Do it for your family, not for someone else. So that is where I spend a lot of my time, energy, and passion is helping successful leaders have both a successful personal and professional life and know that they can reach their goals and there's nothing wrong with it.
I love that. I love that. And, that you touched on something, kind of vulnerable. So thank you for sharing that and, just sharing your story. I appreciate that.
Madam, again, I think that my wife and I share a lot of stuff very publicly via, LinkedIn or YouTube and whatnot, but it's because most people don't understand that they are not alone. We all go through trials and tribulations, regardless of how senior or not senior you are. We are going through stuff every day, but we tend to think that it's just us, that we're the only ones going through this and we're alone because most people via social media and every other way of communication, but don't share those things. They only share the highlights and they keep their suffering to themselves. So if we can share these instances, these hurts, it allows us to be more human, more relatable, and let someone else know, hey, you're not alone. We can bond together and do something good together.
I love that. Yes. No, it's very important to remember that you're not alone. And, most of what people are going through, we only see the highlight reels. We don't see the behind the scenes.
Preach.
Yeah. So, Alex, could you name a book or resource that has profoundly influenced your approach to authentic leadership?
Oh my God. Yeah. So there's so many books. Most recently, the book I read most recently was Gap and Gain. I really loved this one. This one talked about how most high performing leaders are really stressed out. Again, they're accomplice driven. They want to get things done, and the way they motivate themselves is by saying, "Well, yeah, I got this goal, but I could have reached there. I did this, but I should have done that." And it's always this kind of running after the goal. And so that basically what the author talks about is that's when you're focusing on the gap, where you are versus where you believe you should be hypothetically in that world inside your brain. But instead of doing that, focus on the gain, focus on where you are and where you were compared to where you are. And that means that you're consistently growing, you're consistently making progress, and that you should be proud of yourself. And you should know that because you've overcome the challenges you have, that you can do that again in the future. So that is the mindset that my wife and I have been pushing, especially this last year since I read that book. I read a lot of books, but that one I really loved, again, because it got me out of the mindset of consistently kind of beating myself up because I could have been somewhere else.
I love that. Yeah. That's interesting. I'll have to check it out.
Do.
Awesome. Well, who would you say your favorite authentic leader is and why?
Awesome. That's a great question. So, first, I would say Tanisha Agramonte. And some people may know her, some people may not know her. If you Google her, you will figure her out very quickly. She is the current chief diversity officer for Walt Disney, so that large organization that we've all heard about. Her and I have had a number of conversations about diversity and what diversity actually means versus how it's practiced in the world in general. And just making the point, I love. She always makes the point too, like diversity is diversity is diversity. That doesn't mean just because you're focused on diversity doesn't mean you can discriminate against anyone. If a white male is being discriminated against in an organization, that is not right. Just as if anyone else is being discriminated against. And I love that she is willing to take that stand and always be on the side of not discriminating, period. And that's the kind of the approach that I take. A lot of my clients, yes, many of them are from diverse backgrounds, but also many of them are white, are male, are older, and they want to be successful too. They want to do great things for themselves and their families too. And who would I be to say, no, I'm not going to help you just because of the whatever quote unquote label we put on someone, their race, religion, sex, gender, uh, age, all those different things. Who am I to say you don't deserve to be happy because you're blank, you know?
Yeah. Wow. That's inclusivity right there, and belonging. And I think that that's an interesting perspective. And, I think that it is so important that we consider everyone when we talk about diversity. And, I think a lot of times another overlooked population could be those with disabilities or there's just so much that goes into that. So I think you touched on something very powerful there.
There's a woman who we used to work with, Susan. I can't remember. Oh my God, I can't remember her name right now, her last name, but she was wonderful. She focused in the area of neuro leadership, and I remember I had booked her for an event because I also do events for organizations, and I booked her for an event a few years ago, and a month before the event, she called out, Alex, I can't make it. I'm like, oh, what's going on? I bought 300 copies of her book, like we were ready for it, and it was an email, wasn't talking to me. I got on the phone with her, she couldn't talk. So one day out of the blue, she ended up with bleeding on the brain. And she didn't even notice. Like she was talking to her neighbor, and her neighbor's like, look, hey, you need to go to the hospital now. She didn't notice it. So they take her to the hospital. And by the time she gets out of the hospital that next day, she is now disabled. She has to learn how to walk. She has to learn how to talk. She's telling me the last time I spoke to her, she was like, Alex, like, I feel like I'm talking with marbles in my mouth. And she said the most interesting thing about the situation I'm in now is that there's also a difference between people who are visibly disabled and people who are non-visibly disabled. Because when you see someone with a wheelchair or a cane or something like that, you move out the way for them. But after she learned how to walk, like she could walk without the cane, without the wheelchair. But if she gets pushed, it can fall pretty easily. And she says no one even thinks to watch out for her because she's not visibly disabled. So there's so many different levels and layers to this inclusivity. And again, when I'm working with my clients, whether it's executive coaching or training and workshops, it's how do we be inclusive? How do we make sure everyone who wants to reach those significant goals can do so? Because reality is not everyone wants to reach it, right? Not everyone wants to put in the work, but for those individuals who want to, I am there to help them, reach their goal, me and my company.
I love that so much. That's amazing. So in one sentence, could you define what authenticity means to you in the context of leadership?
Mm.
You could go beyond a sentence.
So look, I'm gonna put an answer that you don't like. Many people won't like. Can't speak for you. Authenticity. The first word comes to mind is freedom. Being you. And when I say that, that does not mean that you can be all versions of you at the workplace. I tell people that, like, look, who I am with my best friend is not exactly who I am in front of my mom. It's not exactly who I am at the office place. I might get myself in some trouble. I love making jokes. There are jokes that are appropriate for the office place. There's jokes that are appropriate for your family or your loved ones. And you have certain relationships, certain understanding. Like there are different versions of you. And so I'm not a proponent of the whole idea that, oh, we should just be our whole self everywhere. And I'm like, yeah, you can do that. But there's consequences to it. And I'm sure that as long as, look, here's my thing, as long as you're willing to accept the consequences of your actions, then just shoot, do what you want to do. But when I also talk about freedom, I talk about freedom from a perspective of, if you can gain the resources, the financial resources, if you can gain the skills, if you can gain the relationships and the networks, if you can gain all those things that make you indispensable for an organization or for an industry or for whatever it is, then you have more ability to be more of yourself. Because you know what? If someone said they don't like you, you say, cool, I'll go somewhere else. If someone says, "Oh, I don't like that perspective," or "I don't like how you spoke," or how you could, like, I'm good. I can go somewhere else. But when you're in a situation where you don't have that freedom, when you don't have those people coming looking for you, then you find yourself in a situation where you got to kind of bow down, and be like, well, well, maybe I change who I am a little bit, and that's never a good situation to be in.
Right. That's so true. No, you don't want to have to change who you are. But I agree with you in terms of, there's different variations to who we are and how we show up. Sometimes we're going to show up differently. And I don't think that means inauthentically. It just means there's certain scenarios where certain things are maybe appropriate or inappropriate. If you do stand up comedy on the side, you're not going to, necessarily bring the same jokes to the office per se. But that doesn't mean that you're being inauthentic. It just means that you're, reading the room.
I love the example. One, because again, I do a lot of public speaking. I love watching comedians because that is what they do, right? They are giving a monologue to the audience, and so it's a storytelling. That's what I love doing. Um, you make me think of Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? The guy is freaking brilliant. He's awesome. He's amazing. And I tell people all the time, Neil deGrasse Tyson is not as famous as he is because he's the smartest man at what he does. He is. I promise you, he's not. The reason why he's so successful is that he knows how to communicate that information, whether you are the top researcher in the industry or you're a kid in elementary school. He knows how to raise his level or lower it for the right audience to make sure they understand and they can receive the information being communicated. And so does that make him inauthentic, or that make him a different version of himself because he's changing his delivery and how he communicates? No, it means that he's, like you said, reading the room and understanding how to communicate so that the message is received and you're not putting up more barriers in front of your audience.
Yeah, totally agree with that. So, in your opinion, what's one daily habit that sets leaders up for success?
Oh, goodness gracious. Oh man. Okay, here's the answer. And I gotta say, I am not great at it myself all the time. Um, Planning your day. Uh, it's extremely important. Because here's the reality: is when you're someone who people call on, people know that you get things done, people know they can count on you, then they reach out to you and things keep coming your way and opportunities keep coming your way. And your day can get co-opted by really like great people, get co-opted doing random things versus the things that are really, really important. And so I'm a huge advocate of understanding, of taking the time. For me personally, I take the first week of every quarter just to myself. No work, just planning, reflection, understanding what I want to do for that next 90 days. And that's when I plan out the rest of my months. And then at the end of the week, I do the same thing for the next week. Like today, literally, I blocked off time. I had focus time. There's 2 hours of focus time where I just worked on some reports for some clients. And then I have my time that for the gym. I had time for, I put my boy to sleep. He's 8.5 months. That time is blocked off because that's important to me, and everything else can fall in around it.
Yeah, planning is so pivotal and it's hard to be consistent with it, but when you are, you see such a difference.
Mhm, mhm.
Absolutely. So, you talked broadly about your background, but I was wondering if you could provide some additional insight into your 4C connection model.
Oh, absolutely. So, all those who are interested, do please check out my most recent book, Relationships That Work. You can find it on Amazon, or you can go to gpsleadership.org and you'll find a link there as well. So, the 4C connection model was created because, actually, because of frustration. So my first job and as a quote unquote adult was to create and manage the executive leadership development program for the U.S. Department of the Interior and manage three government-wide leadership development programs, two in D.C., one in Denver. And this all happened when I was 23 years old. It made absolutely no sense. But I was successful in that role. And I was successful in that role upon reflection because I understood that I didn't know everything. I walked into that situation understanding that I am very confident that I don't know everything. And so as I looked around and I was being mentored and coached by, again, the government's most senior level executives, most successful executives, I watched them. I saw some people being successful and reaching very heights of their careers. I saw some people who got there and then fell off. And I noticed there was a difference. And so when I looked into it, I said, okay, this is interesting. I'm noticing a trend here. So I decided to try it out myself. I implemented it to my life, freaking career took off. I met President Obama twice during my tenure. I served as international liaison for two international secretarial conferences. I've done some pretty amazing things because of the ideas that I learned from those people who are watching. So, what are those ideas? The first point is everyone has to understand that hard work does not take you to the top. I'm going to say it again for everyone in the back. Hard work does not take you to the top. It sounds good. People tell you, your mom, your dad, your friends, your mentors, your supervisors, everyone will tell you, just work hard. That does not differentiate you. There are many people who work hard right now who are not where they want to be. So if you look around, left, right, probably in the mirror, there's some people working hard and you're not where you want to be. So hard work is important, but it's not what differentiates you and allows you to move to that next level. What it really is there's four components. And again, I talk about these in detail in the book. The first is mentorship. You need to have access to a mentor, someone who's been where you want to be and who can help you navigate the potholes that you are going to experience in your career. Going to. The second is the ability to lead people. You got to be able to lead people to get a result. Period. I mean, you can't be an effective leader if you can't lead people. The third is you got to make sure you understand how to be politically savvy. You got to be able to navigate difficult and complex relationships in order to get the resources and information that you need that you don't have. And finally, you have to have a network. You have to have, again, access to resources and information through other people that you don't necessarily have yourself. But here's the challenge, or there's the cool thing about it. Every single the four things I just mentioned are all specifically tied to relationships. You got to know how to identify and build a relationship with the right mentor. You not got to make sure you can build meaningful connections with each of your staff members if you're going to lead them successfully. You got to make sure you can build and maintain critical relationships with influential people who can make your career or can end your career. That's political savvy and that navigating those difficult situations. And then networking is nothing more than building relationships with the right people. So my question then becomes, okay, we understand relationships. So does that only mean that extroverts can be successful? No, it's hogwash. There is a specific route that anyone can take in order to build those intentional relationships. And that's first mindset change. Mindset change is first understanding this stuff is important, because if you don't think it's important, it doesn't matter what we teach you. You'll never do it, right? So mindset change. The second is internal clarity. Internal clarity is understanding who you are. Way too often, we're all focused on that other person, but we don't know what our goals are. We don't know what our aspirations are. We don't know what our strengths are, what resources we have access to that we can help someone else out. That is that internal clarity. Now, once you have that, you can go towards external clarity, which is understanding those people. You know where you want to go. Now, who can get you there? Where are they at? Who are their friends? Who are their enemies? What do they need and want in life? That is external clarity. And the final C is behavior choice. Now that you have the right mindset, you understand where you want to go and what resource you have access to. You know exactly who those people are and where they are and how you can help them. Now, what do you say and do to build that meaningful connection? Those are the four C's that anyone can implement if they want to gain more influence and be successful in life.
So, how do they go about building, and leveraging those relationships?
Well, again, there's many different ways. And again, I go into this in detail in the book. Or if anyone brings me to talk to their organizations, but the first thing I would say is, again, obviously the mindset. But let's act as if everyone has the right mindset. Let's just act like we have that. The next thing would be internal clarity. Internal clarity is asking yourself, what do you want? Like, seriously, like, what do you want in life? What does your personal life look like? What does your professional life look like? What type of work are you doing? At what level? Who are you working with? What does your house look like? Do you have a house? Are you living on the prairie somewhere? Do you want to live in the mountains? You need to paint a beautiful picture of what your personal and professional life looks like. Because once you have that picture, now you can start saying, okay, how do I get there? And again, dream big. How do I get there? Now you can start saying, okay, well, I need this skill. I need this resource. So if I talk to this person, they may be able to connect with this person over there. But you can't do any of that until you've painted the picture of your life.
That's such a valid point. You have to start with the bigger picture and then drill down into the action.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, if I can, one last thing on that, it sounds easier than what it is. Because most people, the vast majority of us, are taught via our friends, our family, the media, the culture. Don't dream big. If you dream big, you're selfish. You're greedy. I mean, you hear it in the media all the time. We talk about the rich people. Those rich people, they don't need that. They have way too much. And so because we have this ideal of what quote unquote success is, and I don't want to be too successful because then people will start looking at me the wrong way. I mean, shoot, just last week I bought my first. I'm not a big purchasing guy. I like to travel, but I bought a wallet. It's a Coach wallet. It's nice, whatever. Every time I take it out of my pocket, I was like, oh my God, are people judging me now, right? Oh, they think he must have money or he thinks he's big. Like there are perceptions we have of people who are successful. So we put those limiters on ourselves to say, well, man, I don't want my dream to be too big because what if I fail? What if I don't reach it? What if I tell people and I don't get it? Now they're gonna judge me. What if I do get it? And they're gonna think that I'm greedy or selfish. So we have to be able to work through, and this is why I love working with leaders myself, because that's my job, is to help you work through all of those hurdles, all those limiters, and say, no. I'm not asking you what they care about. I'm asking you what you want. What would make you happy? What does that look like? And that's how we move forward.
Well, okay. That's really helpful. Your industrial and organizational psychology background provides a unique lens for understanding, leadership dynamics. How do psychological principles inform your coaching methodologies, particularly when addressing challenges like, team dynamics or individual behavior patterns?
What's interesting is that that's actually a really difficult question. Um, and I say that because when anyone becomes an expert in their field, it's almost like you don't think about it anymore. It's just it's second nature. It's integrated into everything you think, say, and do, right? And so from a psychological perspective, I mean, I learned how people think. And from an IO perspective, you learn how people think on them by themselves, and you learn how people think within groups of people, and that's what's important as you're talking to leaders, is helping them understand. Hey, look, especially for political savvy, that is helping them understand. Hey, what does this person want? What are they thinking? What is their desire? How are they going to respond in a one-on-one situation? How are they going to respond in front of a group? What are the other dynamics that could be influencing this person's response or their behavior right now? That is that is the core of, and I think anyone, whether you are a psych major, social major, or any other major, I recommend everyone take a psych class and a psych social class, because unless you are literally in a room by yourself and it's dark and you're just typing zeros and ones, you're going to interact with people. And it is always best to understand how people think and what motivates them. And if you can understand that basic component, that's the building blocks of influence.
I love that. Very insightful.
That's great questions.
Thank you. So your latest book, Relationships That Work, focuses on building, intentional connections in business and life. Can you share a key takeaway or principle from your book that has had the most profound impact on your readers' leadership journeys?
So I don't want to ruin this for everyone. There's a story right in the beginning, and I'm not going to tell this context of the story. I'm going to tell the point of the story. I want everyone to read it. Again, it's Relationships That Work. You can find it at Amazon or gpsleadership.org. In the story, it kicks off, it's basically making the point that there is a guy who becomes very quote unquote successful in life. Very successful. I mean, if I mention the guy's name, you know him, and I promise you, all of your audience knows him. And he became so successful because of the advice that he heard when he was a kid. I think he was like 6 years old, somewhere around there. Advice he heard from a kid. The interesting point about that is that the person who said it and overheard that advice wasn't trying to help him, didn't like him, didn't care for him, probably thought he was less than a human being. I mean, I'm sure he thought he was less than a human being. Um, and so the point I make in that story is that great information can come from anywhere, not just people you like. Just because you like someone doesn't mean they have great advice. And just because you hate someone and they don't like you and they don't care for you doesn't mean they have bad advice. And so be very cognizant, remain open-minded to information and inspiration wherever it comes from. Way too many leaders I work with say, well, this person doesn't have my best interest in heart. I'm like, well, but are they wrong? Is what they said wrong? Well, no, well, then you got to accept it. I mean, that's the reality.
Oh, wow. I love that. Being open to, feedback from wherever it comes from. And it might be an unusual source, but, having that openness, that's so interesting and important.
I actually quote someone in the book. I'm not going to say who. I quote someone in the book that some people may not like. And again, I had people contact me. Hey, Alex, you quoted this person. Why'd you quote this person? You support them. I'm like, look, is the statement incorrect? Do you believe that this is right, what was said? Yeah, well, then nothing else matters. This is the point. Take the advice, implement into your life, and you do better. If you think you don't like that person, then you do better, right? But don't get caught up on it. Don't sit up here and slap yourself because someone else is like you're harming yourself because someone else, you don't like someone else. It doesn't make sense to me.
Right. Absolutely. No, I think that's really interesting and definitely a different perspective to have, but one that's, I think, really valuable. And people could learn a lot from doing that. So being recognized as a 40 under 40 honoree and spotlighted as a top leader to know by esteemed organizations is, undoubtedly a significant achievement. How have these accolades influenced your approach to leadership development, and what lessons have you learned along the way?
I would say it reinforces the idea that success begets success. It's the concept of momentum. When you do something big, people see it, they reward you, and you get another opportunity to do something big. And then you do it, they reward you, you get an opportunity to do something big. It keeps going. And so what I encourage everyone, try something. I know it's scary, but try something big. If it's something you are confident you can do, it's too small. I was offered the opportunity to be the chief culture and communications officer for a large national organization a couple of years ago, and I took the job. But initially, I almost didn't take it. I was talking to one of my mentors about it. He was like, "Well, Alex, why are you questioning it?" I'm like, "Well, I'm not sure if I'm ready." And he says, "Well, what percentage? What percentage?" I mean, I think I'm about 60% ready. And he says, "Take the job. You'll figure out the other 40. That the fact that it's 60% means that you are going to be forced to learn. You're gonna be forced to learn, to grow, to get bigger, to meet new people, to try new things. And it's going to force your growth and your development versus going into a position where I'm 100% sure I can do it. Now you may or may not learn. You may or may not grow. Never go into a situation where you are confident you're going to win, because now there's no growth to be had."
Wow. So true. So true. In today's rapidly evolving business landscape, what do you believe are the most critical skills or qualities that leaders need to cultivate to thrive and adapt successfully?
I'm going to use your word. You said in today's rapidly. I think the number one thing we can do as leaders is learn to slow down. I understand it's hard. We are all being consistently pushed to do faster and faster work. We got AI pushing stuff out. We have the media 24 hours pushing stuff out. We have everyone trying to push things out faster and faster and faster. But I'm telling you, all the executives I work with, Fortune 500, SCS, and so on and so forth. SCS is Senior Executive Service for the federal government. They are all understanding that in order to think more clearly and actually, because again, you don't learn from experience, you learn from the reflection of your experience. So you do stuff every day, but if you don't take the time to stop, to slow down, assess what actually happened, what went well, what didn't go well, how you want to move forward, and then push forward again. Oh, I made another concept. Then you're not going to grow. When I start thinking about, I saw this video the other day, and there's these boxers, the UFC fighters, and they're talking about. Someone asked the other guy, he's like, "Hey, can people learn from their mistakes?" And one guy said, "What? Nah, you make a mistake over and over and over," and it clicked for me. Yeah, you can make a mistake once or twice, but once you've made a mistake 5, 6, 7, 8 times, it's no longer a mistake. It's a choice. It's a choice. And so there are many people right now listening to this session, right now, listening to this wonderful podcast right now, who are doing things and they know they are not getting closer to the goal and the life they want. They know it, but you're doing it over and over and over and over. You're making the same actions, you're taking the same steps, you're trying the same strategies that you've been doing for years. It is no longer a mistake. This is a decision you're making. So we need to change your decision. And again, I encourage everyone to reach out, gpsleadership.com or .org, or read the book, Relationships That Work. It's a great mind shift change for you.
I love that. Yeah, definitely. So looking ahead, and we're talking about slowing down and all of that, but as we look to the future of leadership development, what trends or shifts do you anticipate, and how do you plan to stay at the forefront of innovation in executive coaching and leadership training?
Those are two great questions. I'm going to answer the second question first. So I met this guy. His first name was Jim. I won't say his last name. Him and I were hanging out. He was a chief learning officer for a very large organization. We were chilling, hanging out. And I told him, I was like, man, I feel like I haven't grown in a long time. This was a few years ago. I said, I feel like I haven't grown. And he said, well, let's look at your goals. Let's look at your goals, what you've done. We start looking, comparing. And I realized that it was like a 3-year time span where I didn't go to any training, didn't go to any conference, didn't really read any new books. And I said, it's because during that period, I kind of got disillusioned. I had been spending so much time, so much energy on growing myself and meeting new people and all those things that when I went to a new class, when I went to a new conference, when I read a new book, I knew 90% of the information already. So I was like, oh, well, I know what I'm doing. Like I'm sought after, people looking after me. I don't need to waste my time with this stuff. But what you realize then is if you stop, then you stop growing. And there's a shift in your expectations for your training that happens. So in the beginning, when you're developing a new skill, everything you consume is new. So it's going to be very exciting. Oh my God, I didn't know this. I didn't know this. I didn't know this. Like, it's going to be really wonderful. But once you get, a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line, a lot of that stuff, you're going to say, well, I knew that concept. I knew that concept. But now you have to be intentional with continuing, because all you're looking for is 1, 2, 3 core concepts. If you can get 3 key concepts from a book and you can implement into your life, that's a win. That's a big win. Right. So you have to, what I would recommend for everyone, which is what I'm doing, is I am just continuing to learn. And again, in my realm, because I do leadership development for many different types of organizations and I do a lot of speaking, and I have my own podcast, The Executive Appeal, it behooves me to understand a lot about a lot. And so I read a lot of articles about AI. I read a lot of and watch a lot of YouTube videos on environmental changes or the new research being done. Oh my God, the new medical research being done. The world is moving so fast, and I promise you, everyone, if you spend your time learning about the new concepts, ideas, and medicines and technologies and all those things happening, versus listening to the Kardashians and paying attention to all the noise out there in the world, you will be better off. I promise you'll be better off, and you'll be better prepared for the future.
Yeah, that's a great point. Excellent. And then lastly, as we wrap up, what do you want your legacy or what do you want your leadership legacy to look like?
That's a great question. My leadership legacy. So my wife the other day, actually maybe a year ago, somebody asked me a question. She said, Alex, if you won the lottery, what would you do? I was like, oh, easy, really easy. I'd spend I've spent all of my time speaking. I love being on the stage. Coaching. I love working one on one with successful leaders to help them get to that next level. And I'd be about an interviewer. I either be moderating discussions or have my podcast. Like those are three things I love, and I'd have the freedom to focus my time and energy there. So then she said, "So what do you want for your clients?" I said, "The same thing. I want them to have freedom, the freedom to choose. They choose. I want everything I do. Yes, I'm doing leadership development, things like that. I want to teach them a bit better leader. Absolutely. But I want them, as we circle back to the beginning of our conversation, I want them to have the freedom to say, you know what? I don't like how you're treating me. I'm going to leave. Or I don't feel respected at this organization. I was talking to a client of mine the other day. Their boss, they work for the CEO, and the CEO proposed new salaries for everyone, and this person had a significantly lower salary than the rest of her peers. I want her to have the freedom, the stamina, the courage to say, nah, this isn't going to work. Either you need to up this or I'm gone. And shoot, she might should just leave because they tried it. Like, I want people to have that level of freedom. So that is what I want. It's the freedom to do what you want, which is, for me, it's those things and spending time with my family. Like I say, every night at 7:30, my little boy goes to sleep. It doesn't matter who calls me, contacts me, unless it's his grandmother. I'll turn the phone for a second so he can see, her grandchild. And it goes right back off, and then he goes to sleep. But that's the freedom I want. I want that for everyone.
I love that. What a world that would be, right? Let's get there.
Hey, you know what? Here's the reality. Not everyone will,
Yeah.
because not everyone's willing to try the hard things, to do the hard things. And so for every one of your listeners, I'm challenging you, take some time to think about, what do you want? I love these two questions. What do you want that you don't have? And what do you want to do that you haven't done? At least consider answering those two questions. Answer those two questions, then ask yourself, is what I'm doing today going to get me there?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not, I'm going to challenge you to try something new. Reach out, have a conversation, try something new.
Well, Alex, this has been so great, insightful, informative, and just a pleasure talking with you. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Jordan. You are freaking amazing. I can't wait to see awesome things from you. Again, Dominic is always talking great about you. But the last thing I'll say is, I'll just say, everyone, I hope to hear from all of you. Again, gpsleadership.org or alextremble.com if you'll have me come speak at an event. I always, in all of my sessions, was saying these last three things that really mean a lot to me. Hope you stay strong, stay positive, and definitely stay moving. See ya.
Love it. Thank you.